take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels?
Here.
Councilmember Hopkins? Councilmember Vargas? Present. Councilmember Foley?
Present.
Councilmember Donegan?
Present.
Councilmember Brady?
Present.
Councilmember Paplaskas?
Present.
Councilmember Vecchio?
Present.
Present. For the record, Councilmember Hopkins' wife was rushed to the hospital today, so our thoughts and prayers are with Councilmember Hopkins' wife through this tragic time. That being said, would everyone please rise and join in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Under public acknowledgement and commendations, Councilmember Brady, that's the
Thank you very much. Last month, Miss Rhode Island USA and Miss Teen Rhode Island USA was right here in Cranston. It was at the historic Park Cinema and in front of a sold-out crowd. We fortunately enough had a winner, and she's here in the audience tonight with her family, so we want to honor Sophia Ledoux. She beat out 38 other girls to become the newly crowned Miss Teen Rhode Island USA 2020. She's 16 years old. She's a junior at Cranston High School West. She wants to attend the University of Rhode Island, and she wants to pursue in the medical field, a career in that field. Her dream job is to become a successful dermatologist and one day start her own skincare line. She's been part of the student council, Students Against Destructive Decisions, and Best Buddies since freshman year of high school. She's grown strong relationships with students that are part of Best Buddies and loves to put a smile on their face. She's involved in many extracurricular activities. She volunteers her time at Kent County Hospital and Gloria Gemma Flames of Hope while raising funds and awareness for breast cancer. She's a religious education teacher for first graders at her church, and she's been playing softball since age 6. Her other favorite sport is volleyball, which she played for her high school team in her freshman year. Ever since she was young, she wanted to enter a pageant. She entered 2019 Miss Rhode Island Teen USA pageant, and at just 15 years old, she placed first runner-up. She knew in her heart that she had to return, and she gained confidence and many friendships. And for the first time, the first time participating in the pageant, with the return to the USA system, she felt added pressure because she had done so well the previous year, and with the mindset and believing in herself, she never gave up, and recently won Miss Teen Rhode Island USA 2020. Currently, she's starting an organization called Warm Hearts in conjunction with Cranston Clothes for Kids. This charity offers clothing for underprivileged children in the area. Sophia has hopes to get as many schools involved in the organization to help as many children and their families across Rhode Island. I was fortunate enough to work side by side with her yesterday with many of you at our annual homeless Thanksgiving get-together where we fed over 250 people and she put a lot of smiles on their faces. So I look forward to seeing the continued nonprofit work she does here in Cranston and beyond, and we'd like to welcome you up and congratulate you on winning Miss Teen Rhode Island USA.
Sophia's family, after that picture with Ed, if you want to come up and take one picture with her, that'd be more than allowed.
Thank you, sir. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Sophia. It's a wonderful thing you've done. We're very proud of you. Councilmember Donegan.
In recognition of community service, an initiative in organizing a community effort and raised $2,100 in personal donations for the Cranston Historical Cemeteries Commission to assist in their cleanup efforts at Rhodes Green Cemetery, located at Bluff Street and Glen Avenue. The entire City Council extends its sincerest congratulations and best wishes on this memorable occasion to members of the Historical Cemeteries Commission, Thomas Wojcik, Ina Woolman, Jeffrey David, Helen Gannon, and Angie Cosaria.
Do you all want to come up and receive your citations?
Stop. Tom?
Craig, did you want to say a few words while we were
We have Cemetery Commission certificates too to thank everybody, and I'd like to present Tom with these, and so he can distribute them to everybody that participated in this project. And thank you, sir, for all.
Thank you, Mary.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your support. Well, Cemeteries Commission always controls supporting. I know you do a lot of work that seldom gets recognized, so thank you very much for all your contributions. Moving on to public hearings, this will be limited to docketed matters. Your solar ordinances for the evening will be continued to next month for a full hearing at the council to coincide with a comp plan amendment, which is currently at the planning board getting reworked. So anyone who speak on any docketed matters, name and address for record.
Council President John DeBona, attorney with an office at 481 Atwood Avenue in Cranston. Was before the ordinance committee regarding Service Realty Inc., which has filed my client, which has filed an application for a zone change. I'll be brief because I believe most of you were here. My clients own 545 Atwood Avenue, which is tax assessors plat 12 lot 3127, which is presently zoned M1, which is industrial, and 555 Atwood Avenue, plat 12 lot 3163, which is zone C5. The ordinance before you seeks to have a zone change to lesser uses to go from M1 to C3 to 545 Atwood Avenue and from C5 to C3 on 555 Atwood Avenue. The comprehensive plan calls for the property being C3 or Highway Commercial Services, which C3 is. It was expressed at the ordinance meeting in the planning department made a recommendation to the council that it's a better use. It would allow for less intensive uses that should be there. And I would ask for a favorable vote on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Bowen. Craig Mierka, you would like to say a few words? You're on the list. And thank you for the holiday ornament on behalf of Cranston County.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me? So I would like to thank everybody from the council for all you did recognizing the neighbors around the historic cemetery tonight. We presented them with a certificate from on behalf of the commission as well. It's very extraordinary what they did, and I thank you all for giving them the kind of recognition that they so rightly deserve. Did you want me to do the report on the commission now, or?
Just interrupt if you'd like to.
Oh, okay. I would like to first start by saying that December 1st, wear a lot of hats, as you can tell. But I also live at the Governor's Sprague Mansion, and this coming Sunday, December 1st, we have quite a few activities there, and at the Joy Homestead, which is out on Situate Avenue. And it's the Joy Homestead Colonial Park starts at 11 o'clock, goes to about 2, and then at the Sprague Mansion, it goes from about 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock, and then our ward councilman is going to do a tree lighting ceremony outside, so we hope that everybody can come to that. And if you do come, please bring an ornament of your own, and you can take a Sharpie pen, put your name and title and everything, excuse me, on it. And from this point on, it will always be hung inside the Sprague Mansion on our tree. Mary likes to call it the archive tree. So we hope that you can all come. It's spoken like the historian. Before you is former Mayor O'Leary went through our store at Sprague Mansion, and courtesy of former Mayor O'Leary, the Christmas ornaments that we're giving to you to thank you for all the hard work that you've done as councilman. As I start the report for the Cemetery Commission, I would just like to say that this year was a very interesting year, a very productive year for the city. I know a lot of you are interested in starting things like tourism councils and initiatives like that to bring attention and revenue into the city. Something like that, if you involve as part of the puzzle, putting it all together, the history that you have, I can definitely say that there are hundreds and hundreds of cities, towns, and small communities that would love to have your history. And how I can transcend into that is, as many of you know, when we started the year 2019 for the Cemetery Commission, our first big event was at Cemetery 36, which is the Sheldon family lot next to Roger Williams Park on Park Avenue. And we did a lot of work there. The effort actually started in 2018, but really came together in 2019. We got a stone from the federal government. And again, what I want to just kind of draw to your attention, of course, every veteran, no matter what era, is incredibly important to all of us. But there are 4 veterans in that cemetery from the Revolutionary War. And we worked and worked and worked. We were able to get the history of 3 of them, but we couldn't figure out the 4th one. We finally did. Captain Jonathan Fisher, who skippered the sloop Providence during the Revolution, and along with John Paul Jones, was commissioned to be the first group of officers that formed the United States Navy. Cranston, that is huge. In other words, you have one of the founding fathers of the United States Navy buried right here in New York City. The stone that we got from the federal government was a veteran stone, not unlike a lot of veteran stones, but to us, that's a monument. It really is. And Captain Pitcher rightly deserves it. Imagine if you were asked by the federal government to go down to Newport and get a big sailboat, put a couple of small cannons on it, and go up against the USS Massachusetts. No contest, right? That's what they did. And so the Navy of the Revolutionary War deserves our thanks and all that. So that's what the ceremony was about. Plus, the Patuxent Rangers there, Colonel Ron Barnes, and a lot of our political leaders in the state were there, and a lot of you were there. It was a special day. We put it on the Discovery Network because it's that important. Trails like the Discovery Network, and at some point I'm going to be asking your support. The Sprague Mansion, for example, is on the W3R highway. Rochambeau's troops marched right past the Sprague Mansion. A portion of it was there. during the Revolution. The W3R highway the initiative headed by Senator Sheldon Whitehouse goes from Newport, Rhode Island, all the way to Yorktown, Virginia. And it goes right past the Sprague Mansion. And so one of our initiatives is going to be to ask your support because the W3R highway is a national landmark, and we are going to ask your support for getting the Sprague Mansion classified through the Department of the Interior as a National Historic Landmark. So hope you will help us out on that. As you can see from the report that I gave, we did a lot of activities in cemeteries. And the cemeteries that we did cleanup work. We had a lot of people that needed community service, either through the court system or through the school system. And we were very glad to see that quite a few people turned out for all of the events that we had. We celebrated Cemetery Day, as all of the other cemetery commissions in towns, cities and towns around Rhode Island. We celebrated that here in Cranston as well. So Cranston is very much a part of not only of the system that we have by our cemetery commission here in Cranston, but it's a very important part for the state. And if you look at one of the pages of the report, you can see there's a listing of all the important historic cemeteries in your city. Another thing, now, there's problems like anything else, and I was asked by, I think you should know this, I was asked by Susan Campbell from Channel 12 to do an interview at the mausoleum. The mausoleum is a terrible problem, and it is, you know, what I tried to make sure that in no way would our commission commit the city to anything. But what I did is I talked about a little bit about the problems that are there. I didn't want to commit the city to anything because the problem is very big. The building is the size that would house the graves of about 500 people. There's over 300 in there. And through the research that's been done, there's only about half of them that we know. So the other half of the 300 is we're not sure who they are anymore because the building is literally falling apart. It could become a health hazard as well as a security hazard for people in the area. The city has done as much as it can do to cordon off the area, but sooner or later something's going to need to be done. Right after I gave the interview, I got a call from a man appointed by Bishop Tobin from the Catholic Diocese. And he told me that the Catholic Diocese in Rhode Island would do all it can to help people remove the bodies into other cemeteries because the building is falling apart. And so I passed that on to Leanne Zarella. And that's about the most that we can do as a commission. Obviously, the project to correct that is going to be pretty high, and so we don't even have a budget. Just kidding on that. But so the point is you know, we do what we can do to be advisors in things like this. Another problem that we have is I get calls a lot. People complaining about dead trees in cemeteries falling on their property and that being a hazard. And so we try to tell them that, you know, there's only so much we can do, but we're not in the tree removal business. And fortunately, we have two new people that are applying to Council President Farina to come on the commission, and they work for companies that are willing to donate funds. And so what we're doing is setting up things through the Cranston Historical Society, which is a nonprofit where anyone who wants to donate things like that can donate it to the Cranston Historical Society as a committed amount of money that would go to help with some of the work that we do for cemeteries around the city. There are over 100 cemeteries in your city, and so it's a lot of work, and I call the people that work on the commission are magnificent seven, and they are. I can't thank them all enough for all the work they do. One of them, Jim Hall, is right here. Jim, you want to stand up and say? He also is helping me with, for helping the commission form ways of reporting funds coming in. And so he's our acting treasurer of the commission, and we're working with Robert Strom on this, and he's over there. And that's how we were able to take the money in to fix the cemetery, the people that you just honored, and then it went through that to the finance office and out to Northeastern Tree, and things like that. We want to make sure that whatever we do with funds, we're as transparent as we can with you on the council. Nobody is making any money off of anything that we do. It's all volunteer, and I hope that when you read look over the report, you can see a lot of the things that we did. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. But we'll be back when the weather breaks. We're in the process of posting new cemetery signs. One of the things that I would like to get for the commission would be vests that say Cranston Historic Cemetery Commission, so the police, when they're driving by and we're removing signs or repairing stones, they don't think we're vandals. So it's things like that, and it all adds up after a while. So, again, I'd like to thank you all for allowing us to do what we do on your behalf, and we're here to serve you and the people of Cranston. And we'll be back again when the weather breaks after the winter to start again. And one last thing, I know Council President Flynn would be interested in this. It is the 50th anniversary of Apollo 12, the second mission to the moon. Thank you very much.
As a follow-up, I told Madam Clerk to put the 3 names that you provided next month on the docket for appointment to the Cemetery Commission.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions?
Great job.
If you have any questions later and you want to contact me, all you have to do is 944-9226 at the Delaware Spray Mansion. And we hope to see you all this coming Sunday for the tree lighting ceremony and all our festivities for the Cranston Historical Society. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you. Anyone else to speak on any document matters? Good evening, Your Honor. Your name and address, correct.
Good evening, Council President, members of the council. Nick Lima, 81 Carmen Street, Registrar, Director of Elections for the Camping Department. Just want to thank members of the Public Works Committee. We've heard the Ashmont Street name change resolution. As members of the council now know, this is part of a greater project by the Board of Canvassers in the last couple of years. We changed Marion Avenue. We're also working in Providence to get them to change their Moulter Street, and Ashmont Street is the street that we need to change in Cranston. There's a duplicate street in Providence, and the mailing address issues and voter registration complications that arise from that. And we're anxious to get that change enacted in advance of the 2020 elections. We're going to get pretty busy with that starting in February of next year. After the hearing recently, I did get some more information from the DMV. I also sent a letter to Bud Craddock on behalf of the city requesting that the DMV consider waiving the fees. Haven't heard a response from that letter yet, but I did do some research and found that the fees are actually under $40 total for changing the car registration and a license. And from my understanding, it's not required to actually get a new license until your current one expires, and residents could just write the address change on the back of the license and registration itself and notify the DMV. So that's a couple of new points that I found out since the last public hearing. But again, the Campus Department and the Board of Campuses voted to endorse this back in June. The change is endorsed by the Postmaster for the City of Providence in our entire region. And the Providence Campus Department supports this as well. So I hope the council will consider passing this important resolution tonight. And thank you very much. I'll be here if there's any questions when it comes up with the document.
Thank you very much, Director. Anyone else speaking on the document matters? Seeing none, the section of the meeting is now closed. Moving on to resolutions. There are no resolutions for the evening. Board of Committees, Finance Committee, Council Vice President Vecchio, you have the floor.
Thank you, Council President. Finance Committee, first reviewed 10-19-04, an ordinance ratifying the school committee's collective bargaining agreement with the National Association of Government Employees, Local 153, custodian unit, July 1, 2017 to June 30, 2020 contract introduced pursuant to Charter Section 11.02.1. This was vetted at committee, and I believe it passed unanimously. I urge passage here.
I'll entertain a motion to approve. So moved. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second under discussion. Seeing none, clerk, please take the roll on the motion to approve 10-19-06. I'm sorry, 10-19-04.
Councilmember Stichels?
Yes.
Councilmember Vargas? Yes. Councilmember Foley?
Yes.
Councilmember Donovan?
Yes.
Councilmember Brady?
Yes.
Councilmember Paplaskas?
Yes.
Council Vice President Vecchio?
Yes.
Yes.
Next, we heard a resolution authorizing real estate tax abatements, passed unanimously. I urge passage here.
Entertain a motion to approve.
Motion approved.
Second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second under discussion. Seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels?
Yes.
Councilmember Vargas?
Yes.
Councilmember Foley?
Yes.
Councilmember Donovan?
Yes.
Councilmember Brady?
Yes.
Councilmember Paplaskas?
Yes.
Council Vice President Vecchio?
Yes.
Councilmember
Yes.
Motion to do these as a block, can we do that?
No.
We tried. Thank you, Councilmember. We tried several times.
Next, we had a resolution authorizing motor vehicle tax abatements. There were just a few. This passed unanimously. That's urge passage here.
I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
I have a motion and a second under discussion. Seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels?
Yes.
Councilmember Vargas?
Yes.
Councilmember Foley?
Yes.
Councilmember Donovan?
Yes.
Councilmember Brady?
Yes.
Councilmember Paplaskas?
Yes.
Council Vice President Vecchio?
Yes.
Council President.
Yes.
Next, we had a resolution authorizing tangible tax abatements. That also was approved unanimously. I urge passage.
Motion approved.
I have a motion and a second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second under discussion. Seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels?
Yes.
Councilmember Vargas?
Yes.
Councilmember Foley?
Yes.
Councilmember Donovan?
Yes.
Councilmember Brady?
Yes.
Councilmember Paplaskas?
Yes.
Council Vice President Vecchio?
Yes.
Council President.
Yes.
Next, we had tax interest waiver approvals. That also passed. I urge passage here.
I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion and a second under discussion. Seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels?
Yes.
Councilmember Vargas?
Yes.
Councilmember Foley?
Yes.
Councilmember Donovan?
Yes.
Councilmember Brady?
Yes.
Councilmember Paplaskas?
Yes.
Council Vice President Vecchio?
Yes.
Council President.
Yes.
And lastly, we had the tax interest waiver denials. That was also approved. I urge passage here. Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion to approve in a second under discussion. Seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels?
Yes.
Councilmember Vargas?
Yes.
Councilmember Foley?
Yes.
Councilmember Donovan?
Yes.
Councilmember Brady?
Yes.
Councilmember Paplaskas?
Yes.
Council Vice President Vecchio?
Yes.
Council President.
Yes. Claims Committee, Councilmember Foley.
For informational purposes only, if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer, but self-explanatory.
Thank you, Councilmember. Public Works Committee, as a quasi-chair, I don't know if I can share it myself, being the president, but I will pour out the ordinance and amendment title 8.36 of the Code of City of Cranston 2005, entitled Road Controls, offered by council members Wallace, was approved unanimously in committee. I urge passage. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion approved.
Second.
Thank you. There was a question through the chair to Attorney Kirschenbaum that came up about rat, and I don't know if this is to Attorney Kirschenbaum or potentially someone, I said Jason back in zoning, of what would constitute a rat-proof structure. I think, just wanted some clarity. I know you wrote it. I trust you, but just get it on the record.
What is meant by a rat-proof structure is essentially keeping the condition free of any infestation or any other condition on the property which caused the property to be infested by rats in the first place. So it would be to remedy the problem which was cited.
If there are rats.
If there are rats.
Okay, because I think that was a question that came up, that there was
you know, the idea of the neighbor dispute?
No.
So this is, there have to be rats?
Yes.
Okay.
There has to be a condition noted on the premises by the police, which has caused the rats to be infested or, what do they say, housed on the property. And if they remedy that condition and bring it back into a state where the rats are back to the property, then they have not kept that in a rat-proof condition.
That answers it very clearly. Thank you, Attorney Kirschmeyer. Any additional questions on this ordinance? Councilmember Stichels.
Just a question for the sponsor, Councilman Donegan. So if we get a phone call from someone saying there are rats next door, who should we tell the people to call, or who should we call?
I would suggest following up with Department of Public Works.
I think Councilman Stichels is referring, maybe you.
Since he is the council member from Ward 3, he probably will get the most calls on this, so.
Okay, but it's Public Works is the first call.
Yes.
That doesn't work, we'll call you.
Any additional questions on this ordinance? We have a motion and a second to approve. If there are no further discussion, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels?
Yes.
Councilmember Vargas? Yes. Councilmember McCauley?
Yes.
Councilmember Donovan?
Yes.
Councilmember Brady?
Yes.
Councilmember Foster?
Yes.
Council President Trekio?
Yes.
Council President Lee?
Yes. Resolution authorizing the street name change from Ashmont Street to Brady Street passed unanimously in committee. I urge passage.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion approved and second. Under discussion, Councilmember Vargas.
Sorry. Just wanted to say that I had a conversation, just to put it on the record, with Director Lima and make sure that, I think the last time we discussed this was making sure that we were able to have some sort of a communications to the to DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles, just to find out whether or not we would be able to do something for the residents that do live there, very minimal. So I believe Director Lima has reached out to the Department of Motor Vehicles, and they have instructed us that if the residents would like, they don't have to renew their registration or license now, but they can write the new address behind their license, in the back of their license, and their car registration. So I'm not sure if there's anything else that I missed that you want to put it on. If we can also send a communication out to the residents who will be affected by this change, just so that way they know that we're communicating with them and they're just not going to be left blind.
Correct, and that actually could even update their address with the DMV online. It's pretty simple address change process. And there's no fee of not getting a new or newly printed registration or car insurance. But it's a small street, there's a handful of residents. I have no problem taking the initiative to send a letter out to the residents in mid-December. Again, we wouldn't expect this change to be actually enacted until after the holiday season, and the mailing that goes along with that. So we're looking at mid-January for actual implementation. That would give the residents a good month's notice of the actual effective date of the change with the Postal Service. Again, with the Postal Services too, the change is automatic. Even if someone mails something to their old address, it'll still be automatically forwarded by the Postal Service. The residents actually don't have to take any action there. But in terms of actually contacting the residents, I have a couple of their phone numbers. We also obviously have their mailing addresses. So I'll send a letter, and the ones we have a phone number, I'll reach out to you personally as well to make sure that they're aware of the change and where they're going to do in regards to the DMV as well.
Thank you so much.
Any further discussion? There being none, the motion approved and second. Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels?
Yes.
Councilmember Vargas?
Yes.
Councilmember McCauley?
Yes.
Councilmember Donovan?
Yes.
Councilmember Brady?
Yes.
Councilmember Foster?
Yes.
Council Vice President Trekio?
Yes.
Council President Lee?
Yes. Moving on to ordinance committee, Council Vice President Trekio.
Thank you, Council President. The first issue that we took up was 8-19-07. This is an ordinance amendment of Chapter 17.24 Code of the City of Cranston, 2005 zoning, solar energy systems, sponsored by the Mayor, Council President Farina, and myself. I believe we decided we would like to continue so that it can coordinate with the research being done on additional ordinance.
I'll take motion to continue.
Motion to continue.
Motion to continue to the December meeting. A second. For discussion, Seeing none, clerk, please take the roll with the continuance.
Councilman Stichels?
Yes.
Councilman Vargas?
Yes.
Councilman Foley?
Yes.
Councilman Donegan?
Yes.
Councilman Brady?
Yes.
Councilman Paplaskas?
Yes.
Councilman Trujillo?
Yes.
Councilman
Yes.
Next, we have 8-19-08. This is a companion ordinance, an amendment of 17.20.030, Code of the City of Cranston, entitled Zoning, Schedule of Uses. Same sponsors. This we also would like to continue to the December meeting.
Motion to continue.
Motion continued.
Second.
Motion continued, second, under discussion. Seeing none, clerk, please take the roll with the continuance.
Councilman Stichels?
Yes.
Councilman Vargas?
Yes.
Councilman Foley?
Yes.
Councilman Donegan?
Yes.
Councilman Brady?
Yes.
Councilman Paplaskas?
Yes.
Council President Trujillo?
Yes.
Council President
Yes.
Next, we heard 9-19-06. This ordinance, an amendment of Chapter 17, Code of the City of Cranston, 2005, entitled Zoning, changing the zone, 545 and 555 Atwood Avenue, petition filed by Service Realty, Inc. This passed, I believe, was unanimous in committee, and I urge passage here.
Motion approved.
Second.
And motion approved in a second, under discussion. Seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilman Stichels?
Yes.
Councilman Vargas?
Yes.
Councilman Foley?
Yes.
Councilman Donegan?
Yes.
Councilman Brady?
Yes.
Councilman Paplaskas?
Yes.
Council President Trujillo?
Yes.
Council President
Yes. The next four, the clerk has told me that she did not receive traffic reports. She's recommending we continue all four of the traffic ordinances until next month to give them some additional time. He's supposed to have 60 days, hasn't quite been 60.
Motion to continue as a block.
Motion to continue all four traffic as a block.
We need to, point of information, we need to mention the docket number of the...
I will, for
numbers.
point of information, 10-1901, 10-1902, 10-1903, and 10-1907 to be continued to the December council meeting. And motion, we need a lot in a second. Second. Discussion. Seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilman Stichels?
Yes.
Councilman Vargas?
Yes.
Councilman Foley?
No.
Councilman Donegan?
Yes.
Councilman Brady?
Yes.
Councilman Paplaskas?
Yes.
Council President Trujillo?
Yes.
Council President Brady?
Yes. Now on the block. Now to continue the block. So the motion to continue.
So moved.
And motion continued, do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion. Seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilman Stichels?
Yes.
Councilman Vargas? Councilman Foley?
No.
Councilman Donegan? Councilman Brady?
Yes.
Councilman Paplaskas?
No.
Council President Trujillo?
Yes.
Yes. That concludes the business of the ordinance committee. Under public hearings, this will be open to anything anyone would like to say to the council. You have opened the floor. Anyone? Seeing no one, that section of the meeting is now closed. Election of city officials, juvenile hearing board.
Yes.
I received a request from Judge Koya that all three expiring members of the current board wanted to be reappointed to an additional term. So we'll do them one at a time. I entertain a motion to approve Raymond Koya to serve another 2 years in the juvenile hearing board.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have motion and a second. Under discussion. Councilmember Stichels.
Councilman Donegan and I had a meeting with the police department, and one of the comments that came out of it was about discipline in the high schools, and one of the comments that came out from the police department was that they are referring a lot more cases to the juvenile hearing board, and they felt that the juvenile hearing board was getting somewhat overwhelmed. So I wondered if you or someone else could communicate with them and find out if that is the case, and if we need to somehow change the structure of the hearing board or deal with that.
Yeah, I actually spoke with Judge Koya about 3 weeks ago about, when he called to talk to me about reappointing these three people. He did say that it was extremely busy. That's why he asked me to reappoint the same people so it wouldn't be as big of a learning curve for people coming in. He did say it was busier, but I will talk to him to find out if the new structure needs to be put together. And potentially have him come to the council, I would say the January meeting, and just talk to us about the structure and any kind of challenges he may face that he may need to rebuild for. So
I just, one suggestion to put it out there, maybe you could mention it to him so he can think about it, is that maybe we could authorize the hearing board to meet at, in smaller panels of, say, 3 members, or to hear cases, and then they could split up the workload.
Madam Clerk, if you could just send that note to Judge Coyle, see if he has any challenge on that, because it is not my hearing board, it's our hearing board. So with that, the appointment of, reappointment of Judge Coyle, I have a motion and a second, under discussion. See no additional discussion, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels?
Yes.
Councilmember Vargas?
Yes.
Councilmember McCauley?
Yes.
Councilmember Donegan?
Yes.
Councilmember Brady?
Yes.
Councilmember Paplaskas?
Yes.
Councilmember Vecchio?
Yes.
Council President Lee.
Yes. Motion to reappoint Joe Morocco to another 2-year term.
Motion approved.
And motion and a second, under discussion. Seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels?
Yes.
Councilmember Vargas?
Yes.
Councilmember McCauley?
Yes.
Councilmember Donegan?
Yes.
Councilmember Brady?
Yes.
Councilmember Paplaskas?
Yes.
Councilmember Vecchio?
Yes.
Council President Lee.
Yes. Lastly, motion to approve on Judy Abate Esquire.
Motion approved.
Got a motion, second? Second. Under discussion, seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels?
Yes.
Councilmember Vargas?
Yes.
Councilmember McCauley?
Yes.
Councilmember Donegan?
Yes.
Councilmember Brady?
Yes.
Councilmember Paplaskas?
Yes.
Councilmember Vecchio?
Yes.
Council President Lee.
Yes, I welcome them all back to the juvenile hearing board and thank them for their service. Report of city officers, we've already done this, America's Historical Cemeteries Commission. This was on last month from Director Capuano. The tax request for appraisal for 41 Quinta Avenue. We need to take a vote on that, so I'll take a motion to approve so he can get an appraisal.
Motion to approve.
Second.
And a motion and a second, under discussion. Councilman Stichels, do you have the floor?
Is there are there prospective buyers? Is that why we're doing this? If so, who are they?
To the administration,
There are not prospective buyers.
there are no prospective buyers.
Through the chair,
Yes, Madam Clerk.
the charter requires that in order for him to go out to get an appraiser, it requires council approval. That's why he's put this before the council, so we can receive.
Council Vice President.
Yeah, just wanted to follow up, Councilman Stichels, probably you need to establish a value before you can go out and sell it. You need to know what you're going to list it for. And then we have to, and I believe it's a 90% rule, they have to sell it for at least 90% of value.
Director Strong, I see your hand up if you want to weigh in, sir.
Yeah, based on the charter, as City Clerk mentioned, we need to get the approval from the council, as was stated, to get an appraisal done. Once we get the appraisal, then we can do an RFP and send it out and see what potential buyers are. Right now, the first step is to get the appraisal, and a person to do an appraisal. And based on that also, there is that 90% rule, and also the sale of any real estate proceeds should be placed in a restricted account for future capital expenditures or shall be used to pay down current bonded indebtedness.
Thank you, Director Strong. Any further discussion? Seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels?
Yes.
Councilmember Vargas?
Yes.
Councilmember McCauley?
Yes.
Councilmember Donegan?
Yes.
Councilmember Brady?
Yes.
Councilmember Paplaskas?
Yes.
Council Vice President Vecchio?
Yes.
Council President Lee.
Yes. On executive communication, we have a report on hiring special counsel consultants pursuant to Charter 1505 that was passed out this evening. If anyone has any questions on that, now is the time. Done through it, just to be sure. Councilman Donegan.
So I'm just quickly trying to go through this and find it, but is there any preliminary estimate for the legal fees for signing on to the lawsuit with the Rhode Island Cities, League of Cities and Towns on the Evergreen contract?
There's none in this document. No.
I'm sorry?
There's none in this document.
Okay. Is there are you able to disclose?
I am not aware of any fees that have been administered to the town, excuse me, to the city for that lawsuit.
Okay. Thank you.
Any additional questions on the legal report? Request to continue service 1 year, Deputy Chief Richard Mancini, Cranston Fire Department.
Motion to approve.
Motion approved, do I have a second?
Second.
On discussion, director has met all the necessary qualifications.
Yes, he has. He has passed his medical certification, and we asked him to be appointed to his current position as Deputy Chief of Training.
So he wants to be appointed as Deputy Chief of Training, just want that for the record. Any additional discussion? Seeing none, clerk, please take roll.
Councilmember Stichels?
Yes.
Councilmember Vargas?
Yes.
Councilmember Foley?
Yes.
Councilmember Donovan?
Yes.
Councilmember Reed?
Yes.
Councilmember Paplaskas?
Yes.
Councilmember Fittis?
Yes.
Council President?
Yes. Moving on to Council President communications, I already done the administrative report, the definition of record, thank you. Attorney Kirschenbaum, the executive session, I'm actually waiting till the end, it should only take about 10 minutes. It's more, what's the word, structural, how we want to build the reporting and actually get applications for the clerk position. So under Council President communications, I'll just say have a happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Be safe. And a lot of people went to Rome Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Don't do anything stupid. Make good decisions. Stay down with your family. Go Falcons. Go East. Stay them both. Proud, Cranston, by 5 teams. And have a happy Thanksgiving. So Council communications. Northeast Tree from Councilmember Hopkins and Stichels.
Yes, I sent a email to the administration last week, just so they would be prepared to answer a few questions. And the questions were, the first one was the zoning designation for the northeast property, northeast tree property, and its principal permitted use. Maybe I'll go through all 3 questions and then you can, I don't know, if you want to, we'll do them one at a time. You're up there.
It's residential. A8 is the zone that Northeast Tree is in. It's an agricultural operation that's began there in 2005. However, the property goes back to the 1960s prior to the zoning laws. So right now it's considered legal non-conforming use is that piece of land as of right now. In a residential area.
There's a section of the code that I quoted in the email that reads, all uses shall be carried on in such a manner as to produce no offensive noise, dirt, odor, glare, heat, or vibration perceptible or measurable outside the appropriate property lines. And this is the problem there with dust is just phenomenal. The pictures that the residents show me of their gutters full of black muck that is wood chip grindings that become airborne. They enter their pools. One person told me that actually several people told me that they don't open the windows in the summer because the dust comes in and gets all over everything in the bathroom, the windowsills, and I'm sure it's getting in their lungs, more importantly. So I'd like the city to enforce that provision on this operation, and yeah, that's what seems to me to be a reasonable thing to do.
As licensed arborists, they fall under state general law 219-4.2, which gives them an exclusion to any noise, dust, restrictions that the city can impose in a local ordinance. So because they are above 5 acres and they do have an arborist license, that means they fall to the category of, like I said, 219-4.2, which allows them to create dust and create noise as long as there is no malicious intent, I believe the wording to it is, on their part. So
Okay.
that's kind of, I believe, what was, they were taking the court for in 2013, by the city, at which point, we lost the case in municipal court. And from our perspective, what's going on now is what was going on then. So we don't see an avenue at this point to take them to court under that city ordinance.
Were you able to find a written decision by the court, or just that the city lost?
I have a copy of the citation. And I don't think it spells out in words like what the decision was, but the conformance, the violation was 17.20.040, conformance to regulations required, judgment dismissed at arraignment.
Okay, I've seen that. Doesn't.
That's all I have.
That's all there is.
Yeah.
All right. I guess my third question is really, your answer would be the same as the second question.
Based on their size and their licensing, we believe that they're
One, that they're above 5 acres, and second, that they have an arborist license.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilman Stichels, you still have the floor?
Yes, I got to get back to my docket here. Okay. All right, this is another issue with inspections, that the Hope Farm facility fencing is not in compliance with the, I don't know what you call it, the direction or the limits that were placed on the operation of the solar farm by the planning board, and what steps are being taken to bring that fencing into compliance?
That's the bracketing issue, Councilman, that you're speaking of?
The what?
The bracketing issue?
Yeah, just the bracketing issue.
Yes, I know Director Pizzulo had a conversation with the contractor, and again told them that needs to be rectified to be in conformance with what they were given permission to do and how to erect that fence.
They've been told so many times to do that. Why don't we start doing something radical like fining them? Say that, pretending that they're a traffic violation or something. I mean, this has been going, I think this has been going on for over a year, that we've been bringing this up. The first excuse was that that it was too muddy for them to do anything, and it just, it's gone through the whole summer, and now we're into the winter, and we're still, playing nice with people who obviously know they're violating the law, and nothing's happening to them. Maybe they, think that it's going to go away. I don't know what they think. But,
The director's going to comment, Councilman.
So the issue of the barbed wire, there was no condition for barbed wire or not barbed wire in that decision. They installed the barbed wire, and it was a surprise to all of us. But I think that we've been able to get them to at least remove the barbed wire in the public right-of-way because we've asked. If we push this issue, I'm not entirely sure that we're standing on solid ground. I have spoken to them and said to remove those poles. Their response is they're part of the fence. They'd have to be ground, cut off. You can't just take them off. And they said, well, if we grind them off, you're creating very sharp, jagged edges where the arms used to be, which could create other issues if anyone's injured because of that ground down, chopped off thing. I basically told them I don't care, and I'd like them to remove those arms on the public right-of-way. Now, I don't think we're standing on solid ground on this one. We're really not. We did not expect at all that barbed wire would be part of the fencing.
Is there
Like I said, we did not approve barbed wire, and we did not approve barbed wire. Okay, they just did it, and they feel that they have the right to do that to protect their site. So we're taking the other tact of, you know, what leverage do we have to get them to remove this? And right now, they're in the process of getting that final plan recorded, so my leverage is, let's get this thing recorded and get that done and move on and have a nice life.
Is there a height limit on the fence?
The fence was approved for a 6-foot fence. However, it's silent on barbed wire. Barbed wire is not really part of the fence. It's not really the fence itself.
Extending beyond 6 feet?
Again, we're not on solid ground on this condition. I understand completely where you're coming from, but I think that, you know, we don't have bonding for this site. We have decommissioning, but there was no bonding that went along with that site that we could have pulled the bonding. We're on a limb on this one. And I'm trying my best to try to get them to comply and move on, but that's where this stands.
Well, if it's over 6 feet, I don't think it's a proper fence. Tell them to take the whole thing down and start over. They can't figure out how to cut the bracket.
I'm not going to comment one way or the other whether 6 foot was the condition for the fence. So whether or not, you know, I'll look into that, but I don't think that that's what we can hang our hat on.
Councilman Brady.
Thank you, Council President. Ms. Mizzullo, this is my understanding anyone can put up a barbed wire fence throughout the city of Cranston if they wanted?
I can't speak to barbed wire regulations. It's not something we think of, and I'm not versed in that. Usually we see these in industrial sites. A lot of industrial sites, you see that it's common in the M1 and 2 zones.
Obviously, the ordinance is in front of us that we're about to be voting on. Is this something we should consider as an amendment for future use in the city of Cranston?
I think it's fairly irrelevant at this point with that, because there won't be any more of these sites. So.
Director, I see you standing at the podium. Did you have anything on that? Okay, just trying to just got to stand up every so much now, I guess. Councilman Stichels?
Oh, yes. I just noticed that some of the people the neighbors from Northeast Tree are here, and they were not here during the public speaking portion of the meeting, and I know that they want to say something. I'd like to ask unanimous consent to allow them to speak on the Northeast Tree issue.
Any object to allow him to speak? Seeing no objections, please come to the podium one at a time, name and address for the record, keep your comments concise.
How you doing?
This is Bush.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry,
How you doing? My name's Dave Hauser. I'm at 63 Meadowview Drive.
You have to hold it off. No.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm one of the closest neighbors to Northeastern Tree Service. My backyard actually borders their main building. About 3 years ago, they had somebody welding over there, and they actually lit their own tree on fire, which caused the vinyl fence to melt and make it all the way to about 10 feet from my house. So in this case, I have animals and children, so now my daughter is totally traumatized by any type of fire. I can't even show her fireworks because she thinks like the house is gonna light up on fire. We have a pool in the back, so can't even let the kids use the pool because it's completely filled with all type of dust and everything, so I have to vacuum it every single time prior to them being able to use it. Literally, I vacuum it today, tomorrow I have to do it again, which is basically, if you have a pool, shouldn't happen that way. Also, I'm worried about health concerns. They're 10 and 12, they've been there for 7 years now, and at the same time, like, they don't even really play outside since the breathing, and I think there's like some type of mulch dying that's going on, so that type of aroma basically makes it hard to play outside. There's a lot of other things, but I'll let these gentlemen speak on it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm a resident of Meadowview as well, and again, I have the same issues. I have a pool. This guy has a 50-foot pile of mulch, pretty much 25 yards from my home. I can't open my windows. It's, my bathroom's there. So, if we forget the windows open, if we go to brush our teeth, we're brushing our teeth with chemicals and poison. And then you can visibly see, I have videos, pictures, and it looks like it's snowing. I have a $280,000 home being destroyed by the neighbor here. I pay taxes, I pay my taxes on time, and what I'm going through, it's stressful. My wife has breathing issues now. I've been there 3 years. And like Dave said, you vacuum your pool today, tomorrow, the entire bottom is covered with mulch. It's not dust, this is mud. It's not dust. Dust is kind of just dust. This is thick mulch. So basically I gotta come home every day, vacuum my pool 2 hours every night. I work till dark. I work 70 hours a week. So the time that I should be spending with my family, I'm actually vacuuming my pool, cleaning my windowsills, trying to protect my family from the neighbor with this 50. The other day he was grinding trees, logs that have, mold in them. You can definitely tell there's, it's more than dust is the best way I can describe this. It's unfair to anybody on that street. You drive up Meadowview, as soon as you start coming up Meadowview, you see a 50-foot pile of mulch. It's actually twice as big as the homes over there, which is ridiculous. He doesn't have any barriers, he doesn't have any nets, he doesn't have anything. And he can make a living all he wants, but he's out of line for letting it come over his property onto my property and the neighbor's property. There's elderly over there. They're too tired to fight. So, I don't know how many people are sick. Probably 3 people on that street have died. The guy I bought my house from is actually sick, and I don't know what kind of sickness, but I don't know if it's a coincidence or people on my street are getting sick and dying over there. So this is, I understand everybody needs to make a living, but when you start destroying another person's property, we do our job to keep our property up. That every house on that street is manicured, from the lawns to the houses to everything. It's a nice street, but Northeast is actually destroying this. It's stressful, it's stressing me out. And I shouldn't have to be stressed out coming home, wasting all my time trying to keep my property up from this mulch. He's grinding trees off my neighbor's yard, which are elderly. And we're talking 10 yards. 10 yards, you're grinding in a residential neighborhood? That's not legal. It's impossible to be legal. If any one of you guys have 2 minutes, drive up Meadowview and you'll see what I'm talking about. If there was somebody more important living on that street, this would not be happening. No way. Any person that had any higher position than me, a regular citizen, no way this would be going on. I'm worried for my wife, Dave's children, there's children next to him. It's ridiculous. And this is on a daily basis. It's not like once a month. My name's Richard Ayers, and I live at 40 Meadowview Drive. Yep.
Okay.
I don't want to get into a question and answer session. I'd like to get through the public comment, and then if you have a question for the administration, since it's all the same thing, we'll get through
I'll ask the
all.
administration, but I'll ask a question.
Because you may have another question.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Good evening, sir. Name and address.
Hi, my name is Jim Walsh. I live on Medicine Drive. Hi, I'm Jim Walsh. I live on Meadowview Drive. My property abuts Northeast Street. I've lived there on that address since 1968. And at one time, it was nothing but a field behind the house. And I wake up one day and I have a grinding operation right behind my house. No warning, nothing. And the quality of my life has gone down. I never open my windows. I can't use my backyard. My house vibrates from the grinding. I have videos of it. The noise is loud. You know, it smells when it rains. And I'm concerned about the health. I like to hand out to the council what I found on the internet, studies of the dangers of living near a mulch processing facility. You can have anywhere from cancer, to Hodgkin's lymphoma, to various respiratory illnesses. There are studies done by the Johns Hopkins Medical School of cancer, and there's been other studies done that show that airborne particles contain toxins and fungi that can infect your respiratory system. And I can see in sunlight, dust actually comes down like snow. And it's just awful way to live where you can't even use your own. You can't open your windows, you can't use your backyard, you can't enjoy it. You know, the property gets damaged and your quality of life is not what it should be. Because I know what it was like before Northeast Street started grinding up there. And it was a great place to live. I don't know if I could ever sell my house because of it. I'm paying taxes to the city of Cranston. And I probably have a piece of property that I can't sell. Or if I do sell, I'm gonna take a big loss on it. And for all the years that my parents and I have been in that house, I don't think that's the way to treat a citizen of Cranston. Thank you. You don't touch anything.
My name's Don Maluski. I also live on Meadowview Drive. And like Rich said, it's in Jim's backyard. This is a mountain of mulch. This isn't just a little pile. It's a mountain. It's got to be 30, 40 feet high. And it's huge. And yeah, probably more. And you drive up the street and that's all you see. And it's right behind his house. And the stuff is nasty. And it gets in everything. And your gutters are full of it. And it's in the backyard. I left my windows open in my car, and it was covered with all sorts of sawdust, and it's just disgusting. And that shouldn't be there in the middle of a residential area, you know? And if you guys, like you said, just drive up the street. You can't miss it. It's gigantic. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public who wants to speak about this issue? Seeing none, the meeting is now closed. Councilman Brady, question from the administration.
Thank you, Council President. Obviously, hearing the residents speak, I just had a question for our legal team. Obviously, knowing that this is under a state 21942 local arborist, and we've already lost in court, what recommendation would we give these residents moving forward? Would they go to a state level? Because it doesn't seem like we have much jurisdiction to do anything on this case, and they obviously have some concerns. So would you give them any recommendation? It doesn't appear that this body, much like the Johnson turbines, can do anything. It has to be on a state level. Would that be a fair?
Well, it is analogous to the wind turbine situation. Assuming, and I have no reason to doubt, Director Perillo told us, I haven't researched it myself, but assuming that it was state law on the same subject, it's going to preempt what we do here. Now, if the neighbors, and again, this is very analogous to the turbine situation, if the circumstances are as dire as some of the people here have testified to, then the alternative I think they would have is to initiate some type of private nuisance action against Northeast Tree. And we went through this, I'm sure all of you recall, with the wind turbine situation when I had discussed the difference between public nuisance, private nuisance. Unfortunately, if they are compliant with state law, you have to go to the next. The only thing you can do is to make some type of health and safety type of pitch, but that would have to be, as I said, probably in the nature of a private nuisance type of action. So unfortunately, I don't think there's much more we can do from, from the city's perspective.
Councilmember McCollum.
Thank you, Council President. Solicitor, I can give first-hand testimony that it is as dangerous and dire as these gentlemen have portrayed it to be. I met, along with Councilman Stikos and Councilman Hopkins, approximately a year ago with these folks and a few others. And it's just a horrible situation. I'm hoping that we can help them out in some way. I just don't want to turn our backs on these folks. These folks are, it's really a dangerous health risk that I observed here. And I'm just wondering if there's some way we as a city can help protect our residents from, it's overgrown, this location. That's the obvious thing. It belongs down in Niantic Park or somewhere where there's room for this. And when they said that pile is 40 feet high, that's not exaggerating. It's that high, John. And it's over everything. And there's elderly in that area, there's children in that area, and I'll go to bat for you. Anything I can do, I'm on record saying I'll help you out any way I can. So.
Who's going to be liable for this? When people are sick, who's going to point the fingers?
I'm just hoping we can do something, that's all.
One point I'd like to make out at the end of our street is the CLCF building and athletic fields. We have hundreds of children playing soccer, football, softball, all the time. So children are probably within 500 feet.
Yes, Madam Clerk.
Would the speaker please approach the mic? The stenographer can't take your testimony.
I said, if down the end of the street, right next door.
Oh, don't press it. I was on.
Down the end of the street, on Meadowview Drive, is the CLCF building where the athletic fields are and the basketball courts. And you have hundreds of kids there playing soccer or football, whatever, on a continuous basis. So you got all these children from the city of Cranston exposed to this because we're up on a hill. And because we're on a hill, the wind blows up there all the time. And that's why it carries it very far. And if you look at those reports where studies have been done in Merrillville, that dust is going as far as 3 miles. So you're also endangering the children at the CLCF athletic facilities. So I think this is something you should really take serious because it has no business being in a residential area. Like I said, it moved there in 1968. So I know what the place used to be like, and now I look like I live in the middle of an industrial zone, you know? It's just horrible. So I wish you also consider the children at the athletic facility. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilman Vice President, thank you.
Thank you, Council President. Yeah, that's in my ward, and I see that pile every day. You can see it from Pontiac Avenue. I mean, it's so high, it's crazy. I think, unfortunately, we only have there are two options. One is to try to get some legislation into the state that might help, that might impact it. And the other thing is, unfortunately, probably a private lawsuit for damages, because although they have a legal use, however, that doesn't mean you can cause damages to other people's property. Just as if you built something on your property and then all of a sudden you're flooding your neighbor's property, they have a right to sue you. Unfortunately, I don't think, and the solicitor can weigh in, but I don't think we have standing to sue on behalf of the residents in this type of situation. It's unfortunate, but I think that those are the two options. But certainly, if you're being damaged by these people, then that might be a bigger deterrent. If the more people you could get together, the less expensive it might be, and it might, might actually get them to do something.
Council President, if I may, just to, what I could do is, I have not seen the state law. I have not read it. This is the first time I'm hearing about it tonight. What I would suggest is I will take a look at the state law and see the interplay between the state law and our ordinance to see if there's anything there contained in the state law, perhaps, that puts some type of limitation on what they can and they cannot do. Without seeing it, it's very difficult for me to stand here and say, there's nothing we can do, or there is something we can do, but I will.
Madam Clerk?
Yes.
We could put this on the Public Works Committee schedule on the next meeting and have a full hearing on it. I know it's a little difficult because this is under council member communications. We may have more questions, we want to have more testimony, and more neighbors come. So it may be worth actually putting this on Public Works for a full hearing. To give the attorney some time to do some research, the administration some time to provide him with what they have. That may be the best course of action. Here's an objective to putting this on Public Works for a full hearing. Councilor Brady?
So maybe notify the business and see if they want to come.
Yeah, I would recommend definitely notifying the business as well to have them here for that same hearing because they will be discussed. Try to get all your neighbors here, and the date of the next Public Works Committee is
Thursday, December 5th.
Thursday, December 5th. I think that should give us enough lead time. Councilman Staker, should have something to add?
Yeah, I just did a follow-up question for Director Perillo. The section of law that you quoted, when I look at the zoning certificates that I have, the zoning certificates I have for that property, it doesn't mention anything about 219.4.2. Where did that come from?
Where did it come from? That's just the Rhode Island general law.
Yeah, but I mean, what is that? What the building inspector said?
That was part of the package from 2000, from the original case. It was in the package of documents that was forwarded to me from inspections.
Well, I went over there and looked at the file, and there was a brief filed by Northeast Tree's lawyer. Did it come from that, or did it? But
I don't have.
You don't remember?
I don't have a brief from Northeast Tree.
Okay, maybe after the meeting you could show me where the paperwork.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, I think having a Public Works Committee meeting is a good start. I appreciate Council Verdecchia looking into it, and I certainly hope we can. This is really a bad situation. I don't have anything further on that subject if other people.
So to the gentlemen who are here as neighbors and abutters, thank you for coming in tonight. We do appreciate you providing the council with this insight. We do understand it's a challenge for you. December 5th, have a full hearing, have the ability to ask a prepared lawyer questions as opposed to what we think versus what we know. It will help us tremendously to have some more time to get some actual true answers. And hopefully Attorney Verdecchia can work some magic on the legal aspect of the state and give us some good clarity as to if we can help you move forward. So thank you for coming today.
The next item I have is to do with the Process chemical fire. And again, Director Perillo did send me an email about this, but maybe if you could just tell everybody else.
Sure, the councilman asked for the costs of the process chemical fire, and I gave him the cost today, came in at a total of $640,000 for that chemical fire, including healthcare costs, overtime, equipment loss, reimbursement to other communities. That's the total, approximate total of what it costs the city for that fire.
Thank you, Director. If you could just send that email to the full council, just because we all have it. Talk about value.
And the other thing I had asked for with the process fire was, I don't remember if this was at a council meeting or privately talking to you, you had indicated that Solicitor Rawson didn't think that it was a winnable case, basically, for damages. And I suggested talking to another lawyer who was, maybe had some expertise in suing horrible companies. Did that
Solicitor
happen?
Rawson had asked me to, I had asked him what you had asked me, and he reiterated that we would need to prove gross negligence on behalf of the city, and
You mean on behalf of the company?
on behalf of the company and against the city, and he didn't know the limited research he did of any similar lawsuit going forward like that. And in talking to the fire marshal, the fire was considered an accident, just like a homeowner who has a burnt cigarette who burns his house down. We wouldn't go after the homeowner for a similar type of accident. So it was almost, it's one of the expenses that the city incurs for being in the fire service. Unfortunately, in this situation, it was a chemical fire with a lot of damage, but he did not see, the fire marshal did not believe there was any gross negligence that we would be able to prove in his fire capacity. Not as an attorney, but in evidentiary value, he didn't believe that that would be something that we could go forward with. And neither did Solicitor Rawson, so I did not go further and ask an outside attorney, basically bring city business to an outside attorney.
Okay, maybe a question for either Mr. Kirschenbaum or Mr. Verdecchia. What is the statute of limitations on a case like this? Do you know offhand?
Well, this would, assuming this comes under a property damage type claim, that's 10 years. Personal injury is 3 years. This is I guess, an indemnification claim. So, I think, yeah, to be on the safe side, we probably would have to go with the 3-year statute. To be on the safe side.
Just after 3 and then you'd be out.
I didn't hear the...
They might argue it's negligence.
Yeah, it's probably 10, but to be on the safe side, if they try to color it as a negligence type claim, that's controlled, that's 3 years. Any type of negligence claim is 3 years. Property damage, when you're seeking compensation for property damage, it's usually 10 years.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Dunn.
Would it hurt to at least send a separation letter out to the property's insurance company, place them on notice? I mean, we can go try to go through insurance right before trying to go to litigate.
I mean, you would have to have a legal basis to do so. And again, this is, I haven't researched this either. Solicitor Rawson did, and I'm sure he did a very thorough job. And just based on what I'm hearing, I tend to agree with his conclusion. It would be very difficult under these facts to seek indemnification because, as Director Carrillo is a good example, where do you draw the line? So if an accident occurs and the city sought reimbursement for rescue personnel, for police, for fire, where would it end? That's a service that we provide. The exception being if someone does something that is just, outside the heartland of the usual situation. So if they did something and the term gross negligence was used, meaning that not only were you careless, but you were careless to such a degree that under no circumstances could it be construed as reasonable. And from what I'm hearing, and again, this is just what I'm hearing, the fire marshal concluded that wasn't present, so I don't think you have a legal basis to do that.
Councilman Paplaskas.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. For the chair to Attorney Badecchio, do we know if a federal agency or an outside agency fined them for any negligence during the fire, like OSHA or something like that?
Wow. OSHA was one that came to mind. I mean, I don't know if anyone was hurt. I mean, that's normally when they, OSHA investigates, I think.
If an outside federal agency fined them or for negligence, would that give us city a leg to stand on to try and recoup some of this money?
I guess the other one would be the EPA, if they did some type of investigation. I guess it would depend on what the conclusion was. That's hard to answer. If they're fined, depends what they were fined for. Would they fine for poor record keeping, for instance? I don't think that would do it. Were they fined because of, you know, some innocuous zoning things they didn't do, or they didn't have a proper door, they didn't do this, they didn't do that? Probably not. Now, if they came in and they fined them because they had open containers of extremely dangerous chemicals, flammable things, maybe then.
I think we should look into that. Just maybe the fire marshal wasn't aware if that even happened, or Solicitor Rawson didn't think of that angle.
Yeah, I mean, it would depend on what the findings were, and I don't know.
Councilman Vargas.
If I can ask, directly as well, are we able to reach out to OSHA at all and see if there was any prior sightings at all in the records in prior years?
Yeah. Sure.
I was trying to find it, so.
It would be a freedom of information request. I mean, I think that's public information.
Or the other department that you had mentioned.
So,
yeah,
at this point, since Attorney Badecchio did not do this research, he is not really versed to answer a lot of these questions. I'm going to ask that Attorney Rawson come to the December full council meeting where these questions can be asked to him directly, because it's quite possible he's done all this research. So to the administration, I would ask that you have Attorney Rawson here for December 15th council meeting, so we can have this on the docket again for discussion. I think, you know, we can, if you have any suggestions for Attorney Badecchio or Rawson, I would recommend sending them via email, but to continue to ask Attorney Rawson questions when he's not really 100% prepared to answer them, I think would just be anecdotal. So again, have to come to the December 15th council meeting, and any questions you have, please email Attorney Rawson and Attorney Badecchio. That way we can get some good solid answers. Councilman Stichels, you have another administrative report on decommissioning estimates for solar farms?
Yes.
I wasn't able to get all of them from Director Rodeo. He was out of the office last week. I do have a decommissioning cost estimate for Gold Meadow Farm. It's $180,000 total.
Is that from Dupree Engineering?
This is from Dupree Engineering, yes.
Yeah, well, that's the problem. It's supposed to be an independent engineer under the code, not the company's engineer. And the second thing is there doesn't seem to be any kind of inflation. You know, they're not going to decommission it tomorrow, they're going to decommission it 30 years from now, and there doesn't seem to be any kind of inflation adjustment to that.
It says 20-year, 1% inflation.
There is?
It says 20-year, 1% inflation.
Can't get much lower than that.
No.
But it needs to be an outside analyst that's hired by the city, outside engineering firm, hired by the city, paid for by the company under the code. And they're not doing that for, I don't think they're doing that for any of these companies. And they're supposed to do this, supposed to post this bond.
It has to be different from the one the company utilizes?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be somebody who's objective, and, you know, Dennis Dupree's not objective, he works for Gold Meadow.
I will follow up with Mr. Rodeo on that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to follow,
Council Vice President?
just to follow up on that, I think they probably need an actuarial value. I mean, 1% is pretty low. And I don't know if any actuaries would determine over 30 years, but it would only cost 30% more. Because you're talking about construction and removal of hazardous material, it could be very expensive. So I think we need a very professional approach to this.
Thank you, Council Vice President. I don't see any other council communications.
So maybe we could put that on a finance committee agenda or.
Yeah, it does have to be finance, so we'll have it to the finance committee agenda as long as Council Vice President McGill is on board.
Sure. Let's add it to the list.
Okay.
When the next finance, is that Monday night?
It is December 2nd.
Well,
Is that enough?
yeah, maybe we should, I don't know, it's up to Director Perillo when he could get some information.
I would suggest January.
What is the January finance committee?
That's fine.
Thank you.
Councilmember Vargas.
Sorry, Councilman, I figured while I'm here, I might as well thank the administration and everyone who provided us with the new and live website for the city of Cranston. It's live, and I took a peek at it, I shared it as well, and if at some point I'll reach out to, I think it's the mayor's office, just to find out if we can add the, if you would like to serve on a board and commission, which is an ordinance that passed earlier this year on our website, and you can get that added on there. Other than that, I just want to congratulate, I think that it looks great, it looks awesome too. So, 2 thumbs up on that.
Thank you, Deputy Director Jan Andosha. Community Service, whatever his title is. So, Mr. Andosha, the law on site, so we thank him for that.
Did you make up that title?
Any of the heavy lifting, send it to committee. If you have a thank you or well wish for Thanksgiving. Good. Before we close councilman communications, there are 2 tree lightings in Cranston on December 2nd. One at Sprague Mansion, sponsored by December 1st, sponsored by Council Member Donovan at Sprague Mansion at 4 o'clock, and then one in Knightsville, sponsored by Councilmember Kaplowskis, also at 4 o'clock. Councilmembers are going to try to be a vote to support both ends of the city. The mayor's tree lighting is Monday, Tuesday, December 3rd, at 6 o'clock at City Hall. Councilmember Kaplowskis.
Just to talk about the tree lightings, make a suggestion for Councilmember Donovan's first. I think he's going to light his tree around 4:30, and I'm going to hold off till about 5 to light ours, so it gives you half hour to get to the next one.
Don't speed. Councilmember Vargas.
Sorry, I apologize, but if we're kind of just marketing and making sure that we all support each other, this also Patuxent Village has the Santa event that's taking place on Saturday, December 7th at 2 o'clock. So
Thank you. I was going to go into executive session, but you have the resume for the person who has submitted their name for the clerk position, so I don't think we don't have to mention it, but you have the resume for the person that was submitted. That was the only thing I was going to call the executive session for. The resume was in the email from Maria. It came out a little late, so we have an internal candidate that has shown interest in the position. There is also a job description that Madam Clerk has sent. It sounds like it might not have been reviewed, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask everybody in the council to review it over the next couple of days. Please send suggestions to myself and Madam Clerk. It basically has every function that she does. We'd like to have it reviewed by the council, and then we would post this position at some point in the middle of December or beginning of January. Councilmember Stichels. Or Councilman Donovan.
Did we receive a resume or a job description?
You got both today. So you got a resume from the applicant candidate, and then a job description. So the goal would be, like any hiring, we have an internal candidate that has shown interest. That will be there as an internal candidate. We also will be posting a job description to solicit additional candidates.
Okay.
Councilor Stichels.
The posting, will that include advertising?
Yes, we'll have to advertise the position. Madam Clerk is going to work when you see your email, you'll know why I'm saying this. Madam Clerk is going to work with the administration to find the best way to advertise this position so we can solicit more resumes.
Good.
And then we will work with the personnel department to review those resumes against the job description and have a pool of candidates. So we don't need to do it in executive session. Check your emails. Any questions on the job description, feel free to reply to myself and Madam Clerk. Introduction of new business. I won't say that there's all business. Introduction of new business. I will say a motion to send all the new business to the proper committees.
So moved.
Second.
I have motion and second. Under discussion. Seeing none. Oh, Councilor Stichels.
I object to the first two items being sent to committee because what the mayor is proposing is a violation of the law. In the city charter, section 6.12, which we've gone over this so many times, I've got it marked and clipped in my charter. After the adoption of the capital budget by a majority of all members of the council, no money shall be expended on or contract entered into for any capital improvement project during the ensuing fiscal year, except in accordance with the capital budget.
Okay, since I have objections sent to committee as a block, we will vote on the first two separately to have a voice call vote because Councilor Stichels has challenged it. These are mayor from ordinances, so on introduction of new business, I will entertain a motion to send 11-19-01 to the finance committee. I have a motion to send to committee.
Motion approved.
I have a motion to send to committee. Do I have a second? I have a second. Under discussion. Councilor Stichels has objected because he feels this is against the law. Councilor Stichels, any add?
Yeah, I mean, we can't amend the capital budget in the middle of the year according to the charter. I went over this with the playground at,
I just want to say one thing, Councilor Stichels, if I could. Although I think many of the points may be valid, I don't think talking about or debating an ordinance that hasn't been introduced yet is the wisest thing for our open meeting friends who look on these meetings from time to time.
Makes a lot of sense. So we have a motion to send this to committee. This will allow Councilor Stichels to object. I have a second. On sending 11-19-01 to committee, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilor Stichels?
no,
Councilor Vargas?
Is this to send it to committee?
Yes.
Yes.
Councilmember McCauley?
No.
Councilmember Donegan?
Yes.
Councilmember Brady?
Yes.
Councilmember Paplaskas?
Yes.
Council President Trujillo?
Yes.
Council President Leo?
Yes. Entertain a motion 11-19-02 to committee. Finance committee.
Motion approved.
I have a motion to send to committee. Do I have a second?
right.
Second.
Second, under discussion. Councilor Stichels objection because he feels this lies in the face of the charter. His objection is noted for the record. Clerk, please take a roll on the motion to send 11-19-02 to committee.
Councilmember Stichels?
No,
Councilmember Vargas?
Councilor Vargas. Councilor Vargas.
Is that one to send it to?
Committee.
Sorry, I should know, let me see. Yes.
Councilmember McCauley?
No.
Councilmember Donegan?
Yes.
Councilmember Brady?
Yes.
Councilmember Paplaskas?
Yes.
Council President Trujillo?
Yes.
Council President Leo?
Yes. Those are the committee. I'll entertain a motion on the rest of the business to committee after, to the proper committee.
So moved.
Yeah, I'll read it. Makes sense.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is set to committee. Bill Slay's business request back, there is none.
So moved.
Makes sense.
Second. We are second.
Next meeting.
Next meeting is Monday, December 16th. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Dude, the chemical companies.